Welcome back to another episode of the Matt Stat Show, episode 50. You know how long it took me to figure this out, to not go 50 this way, to go 50 that way, so you, the viewer, can watch it adequately. Speaking of 50, it's a number that passed these gentlemen a long time ago, my co-hosts Glenn Gormley and Kevin Hazard. Speaking of another 50, it's we're recording this on December 23rd, which for many people is Guile from Street Fighter's birthday. It's Festivus, and it's also the day Kevin Hazard welcomed his bouncing baby boy and my broadcast and announcing partner, Bryant Hazard, to the world. So before we get into today's topic, we're going to go into the holiday scene. We're going to talk a little family. Kevin, tell us about Brian's arrival into this world and what you recall about said moment.
Oh, it was really interesting. You know, it was in Newport News because I was teaching at work at the time.
I was born in
And
Newport News.
and so we're at Riverside Hospital.
I was born at Riverside Hospital.
There you go. So
Are we
we
related?
checked.
We got the
We
same
could be.
hair. Yeah, that's another conversation, but yeah. So
So
Riverside.
we got there and they said to Joanne, maybe, come back. She said, "Oh no, I'm not leaving here. This is happening today." So we put her in, and he was born. It was beautiful. I had a card game set up in a wing that was not being used. And then we took him home on Christmas Day in a stocking. So his sister was not thrilled that that was her major present for the year. It was Brian in a Christmas stocking.
You got me a little brother. Great.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly.
Yeah, my daughters were both born in the summertime, so we didn't have to worry about that. So, yeah, and again, I was born in August in that same hospital several years following because I was born in that decade though. I was born in the 70s, but yeah, Riverside Hospital. It's drove by it almost every day, which depending on which way I went to work. When I'd go down to the Daily Press coming from Pocosin, sometimes I'd shoot down Main Street, sometimes I'd shoot down J. Clyde. Sometimes, it just getting around Newport News, usually the instructions always start with get on 64 when you're anywhere on the peninsula. So, and those of you that may not have been to Hampton Roads in a while, yes, 64 remains under construction and has been under construction for at least the past 46 years. So, anyway, Glenn, how about you? You got any birthing stories to deliver, or no pun intended, or
Well, yeah, I guess the big birthday, besides Brian, of course, is 2 days from now. It's Jesus' birthday. So it's
Jesus, I
Christmas
like him very
goodness.
much. He no help with curveball. No, just yeah. Reason for the season if that is your cup of tea. So today we're talking. We're going festive. I'm just gonna go right to the slides, Glenn, because we're going festive. We've got Rudolph leading the charge. Santa with. I am disappointed though, Kevin Hazard. You did not wear a Santa hat today. You were in prime position to wear such hat. You've got the gray beard. Now you're not like full, Santa here. I'm not gray. I'm graying here and here. I can't quite pull it off just yet, and I don't know where my Santa hat went. All my red hats say have a St. Cloud State logo on them. So anyway, so yeah, you missed an opportunity.
If I was in Delaware, I'd have a hat. But I'm at my sister's house for the holidays, and I didn't bring my hat with me.
Glenn, for shame.
Sorry, guys.
What's he doing
Yeah.
down there? What do you? I feel like the Brady Bunch when we're on this view. What are you doing down there? Dun, 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 dun. Here's a story. All right. Anyway, yeah, we're off to a rip-roaring start here on our last episode of 2025, episode 50. Ask not what wrestling can do for you, but what you can do for wrestling. To quote a great leader back in the day. Glenn, we got a lot of stuff here, but it's not going to be a very long show. We've had long episodes here recently, but we've got a good dialed in show here today. So let's kick us off. Where are we going with today?
Okay, after doing a lot of research with Matt Stats, we want to talk about all the changes in the last few years and explain why in 2026 and moving forward, it's so important. Okay. As always, slide 2 is our table of contents in this episode. Why were we created? Mike Moyer wanted Matt Stats to create a library of statistical analysis for the NWCA, so that's why we're here. Okay. And as I always say, the opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect any opinions or policies of the NWCA, nor do Gormley, Bryant, and Hazard always agree with each other. Okay.
I
Matt
just want to
Stats is
disagree with you out of spite, just because, but usually I
okay.
can't because the numbers validate it. So, and
Okay,
I'm a
thank you.
facts guy. I'm a facts guy. So, like, yeah.
Yeah. And Matt Stats is based on numbers, stats, and analyzation. It starts with facts, not opinions. Okay. Now, talking about facts here, as we always do, we update you on the number of NCAA, NAIA, and NCAA wrestling teams. As of 12/19, which is just a couple days ago, women's wrestling is now number 14 on the NCAA list of sports with most female teams. We passed ice hockey this week when Kent State in Kent, Ohio started a women's team. Great news. There's now 122 NCAA women's programs that are inactive or been announced. That is staggering, guys.
Yeah, we had two women's programs again as we record this December 23rd. Two women's programs added last week. Division II Concord in West Virginia and Kent State. Which, wow, when that one came through, I had just written in the newsletter on the Mad Talk Daily Wrestling newsletter that okay, here I was gonna write this up and be okay. Here's the year in review. Like Spotify's giving you your Wrapped. I was gonna do that. Here's the year in review for our wrestling programs that were added. And before I was like, I'll do that for the next day. Then boom, Kent State's announcement comes out. So the 7th Division I school with women's wrestling. So Kent State will fire up in 2026-27. That was a welcome surprise. That one was not on my radar.
No, not on mine either at all.
Okay, so we've been going through 45 to 47, which is the business of wrestling, and there have been some really major updates kind of proving the point that you got across. Can we just get an update on that, Gorms?
Sure. Recently, guys, we pointed out on shows 45 through 47 that we believe there's going to be a big private equity splash in collegiate sports. And lo and behold, about a week or two ago, Atro Capital announced a $500 million investment in the University of Utah Athletic Department. Atro will make a percentage of revenues, not profits, percentage of revenues. Okay. University of Utah has an exit strategy. They can purchase in 5 to 7 years Atro's ownership stake.
It's I did do a little research on Atro, and their roots are in Redbird, and Redbird is an investment group that has been investing in pro sports for years. And with the changes, now that there's basically there's money, it's becoming more of a business model. They're seeing opportunities in college sports, and the president of Atros is he was the president of the Cleveland Browns, so he's very he knows sports inside and outside. And they set up a vehicle, and it's called Utah Brains and Entertainment. And what they're going to do, besides the investment, they're going to oversee corporate sponsorships, ticketing, event-related revenue. So they're going to bring business expertise to Utah, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that. We've talked about it over the years, where the they're not college sports departments are not really good business people, and maybe this is for the good. If they're bringing in business people and they can take over that part of it, it might be a little better than we were thinking it was. But one of the trustees for the University of Utah, Bassam Salam, said, "Are there risks to this?" And he said, "Yes." And am I concerned? He goes, "Oh yes." So I mean, there are real risks in this, but we have to wait and see. This is something that's going to play out over a decade before we really. It's really kind of like Title IX in that there's turmoil, and when the dust settles, we'll know a lot more. All right. It is going to be continuing a more important part of the business of college sports, because college athletics don't have a revenue problem. they have a spending problem. So, and with the private equity investments, college athletics will more and more, they're going to look more and more like a for-profit venture. And that means non-revenue sports like wrestling are increasingly at risk, because when businesses take over, the first thing they look to do is to cut costs. And if you're a non-performing, so, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the show today.
Yeah, thank you
one
for that.
thing I want to stop before Glenn gets on the thing. One thing, and again, I haven't spent a whole lot of time digging into the private equity. I know it dominates a lot of the talk with the college football podcasts I listen to, with Pat Forty, Ross Dellinger, those particular shows. But I'm sitting there and I'm listening to Kevin break this stuff down. I'm like, okay, there's like the part of this like, okay, yeah, expertise. And then, oh, wait, yeah, because they're in the business of making money. They're not charities. And granted, this guy was the president of the Cleveland Browns, so I'm not sure how much he knows about winning. So that's going to be something Utah knows a little bit about winning.
That's a really good point.
With their gymnastics, their football program's done good. Of course, they've got pretty good sports programs at Utah. They don't have wrestling, so I really haven't paid much attention to it. But the worry I have is if hopefully now the silver linings, like in a perfect world, they will come in and look at how messed up the spending is in college athletics, which Glenn will touch on here. But I'm looking and go, okay, oh, you mean you can look at this without NCAA type of school accounting eyes and be like, oh, well, they're a non-revenue sport. How much money are we putting into creating revenue for that sport? Zero. So of course you're not generating any revenue. You have no interest in generating revenue. It's like when I do the attendance, I track the attendance with NCAA wrestling. Oh, we don't ticket for that sport. Why the hell not? Like, why do you not want to make money on something? Oh, because the cost of running the ticket software for that event may not break even. Oh, because you don't think you can do something as a reason to not try. Hopefully, that's where I think the one thing I think private equity could hopefully in my heart of hearts, the altruistic bleeding heart hopefulness, I think maybe they can come clean it up. But at the same point, they may just look at it and be like, oh, this program's not losing money. How many sports can we cut to get to the minimum and be done with it? Like, that's what I worry about. I worry about that. I worry about the easy option. Press the button, get rid of it. It's off our balance sheet, off our ledger. That's what I worry about. I pray somebody with some business sense takes care of this. But at the same point, what's the definition of insanity? Anyway, Glenn, I have kidnapped your show. There we go. Okay. I don't know. Did I just kill the whole show right there? I don't know. There's my thoughts.
No, you're
That's
fine.
why I'm so interested in this, even though this isn't the key part of our show today.
Okay, here you go, guys. On slide 10, it shows the revenues, expenses, and profits at University of Utah Athletic Department in the year 23-24 in millions of dollars, of course. Real quick, the revenues were about $110 million. So in other words, a $500 million investment is almost a 5-year revenue stream of the University of Utah. And like as Jason was saying, sports that we might care for might not produce any revenue, so they're not getting a percentage of nothing on that. So they might not be interested.
Glenn, before we go any further, where are these numbers coming from? Because, that's one of these things that a lot of our, I love college football, but I hate college football. That being said, when you try to argue revenues and profits with a college football fan who pays attention to no other sports other than big time college football and basketball, you get revenue. Well, yeah, your sport doesn't bring in revenue. Revenue is not profit. So where do these numbers come from?
My apologies for not putting all this thing I usually do. It's from the Knight Newhouse website that we've used on episodes 45 through 47. My fault for not putting it on there. Thank you for that.
Which, in case you haven't watched previous shows or are coming in on this show and haven't seen us reference that is kind of the gold standard in college athletics reporting in terms of who compiles this stuff. Granted, again, it's only as good as how the reporting is done. But the logging, Knight Newhouse tends to that's where this stuff is, the repository of such information.
Yes. So anyway, University of Utah had a $17 million loss that year, and that was before the $20.5 million rev share took effect this year. Okay, so you could make that a $40 million loss. Okay. One question is, why would Atro want to invest in a losing business? They must think they can change some things around. Like I said, with the $20.5 million, there's a bigger mountain to climb. So I told you already, it's a 5-year, almost 5 years of revenue what's getting invested. So it's changing everything drastically. The University of Utah Athletic Department financial sheets will look nothing like they used to look. Okay. Hopefully it's for the good. Okay. I'm really not optimistic about how things turn out for colleges that accept private equity money. To me, it's the private equity wants to be in charge because I'm giving you $500 million. I want to have the last say. And the college president and the college AD want to be in charge. So it's a real question there that we're going to, like Kevin said, we're going to have to wait and see. We don't have enough information yet, but it's going to be a tough road to hoe.
Yeah, so that's kind of an update on where we are with our recap on 45, 47. But what are we going to talk about this month? And why did you title it "Ask Not What Wrestling Can Do for You, but What You Can Do for College Wrestling"?
Exactly. Okay. The topic on this month's show coming up here is it deals with where the growth comes from, new member schools in the NCAA, the NIL piece in collegiate wrestling, new fiscal parameters, and what we could do to continue the growth of collegiate wrestling. Because we've seen amazing growth this century, which we'll get into. The title comes from the vast changes of collegiate athletics financial situations and how it would affect college wrestling, as many of us realize the playing field has changed drastically. And Kevin, to be more specific on your question, as Jason mentioned, we're looking 50 long in the rearview mirror. We're looking 60 in the rearview mirror. Okay. It used to be that we could look, not you, Jason, me and Kevin are. Okay.
That's approaching me. I got a couple more years for that one.
Yeah. Okay. So it used to be, when we were young and naive, Kevin, we said, well, what can William and Mary do for us? Okay. We have to look at it now, what we can do for college or high school wrestling. And I got an old school hat, William Mary Wrestling lives. Okay.
All right. So we talking about that, and you're talking about growth. Where is that growth going to be coming up? Where are we going to get that growth? And any guesses on the reasons why D2 and D3 are growing so much?
Okay, Kevin. In this century, okay, the growth of NCAA teams, okay, of all the growth, 137% of the growth of NCAA teams comes from D2 and D3 combined. Yes, you know what that means. D1 has lost teams. Okay. So D2 has increased 64%, D3 55%. It's a big growth. Okay. 38% of all current NCAA men's wrestling teams were added or reinstated this century. 73%, almost 74% for Division II. And where did I get these numbers? From Jason Bryant's website. Nobody does a better job than Jason Bryant keeping track of what teams added and what year. It's an amazing site. So that's where Matt Stats got it from. All right. 38% of all current NCAA men's wrestling teams, okay, like I said, were added this century. All right. For Division 2 and 3. The next chart there that you're seeing is a graph of the NCAA membership. Not wrestling teams, football teams, basketball, any team that's an NCAA member. Okay. In other words, a small Division 3 school counts as one, and the biggest Division 1 school counts as one also. Okay. It's grown from 82 to 24-25, from 753 members to 1,053 members, 300 members. It's grown 44%. So where does this come from? 252 of those members are Division 2 or Division 3 schools. 76%. The growth in people playing collegiate sports are small schools. It's not unbelievable then that the wrestling's growth has come from Division II and Division III. Okay. A little over 8% of all NCAA schools with a men's wrestling team are schools that joined the NCAA as members since 2000, and 27% have joined since 82. The reason we use 82 is that's the year the NCAA started keeping great data points and men and women merged. Okay. So of all these wrestling teams, okay, that have added, 27% weren't members when I was wrestling. All right. 44% of all the new or reinstated NCAA men's wrestling teams this century became members since 82. So almost half of the new members of the new wrestling teams were not members when I was wrestling in college. It's 14% for this century. Now, in 81, 82, okay, 48% of all NCAA member schools had men's wrestling. This year, it's dropped to 27%. Okay? And it drops in all Division I, Division II, and Division III. Now, there's a couple ways to look at this. Okay? It's bad news that we still don't have, as many as 53% of the teams that used to be Division I members had wrestling teams. However, there's so many more new members. There's such a bigger pond to fish in right now to start wrestling teams. All right? Anytime you talk about TV ratings, you talk about historical TV ratings. You can see this on the next slide. You see that I Love Lucy is so far above everyone else. Well, when me and Kevin were young, there were 3 channels: ABC, CBS, NBC. That was it.
Yeah, and in Virginia, it was 3, 10, and 13. That was it. That was like, as Jeff Foxworthy used to say in his stand-up, if the president was on, your night was shot.
Yep. Whenever LBJ was on, me and Hazard had nothing to watch. Okay. He was the president. I wasn't
going to go with that reference. I was going to go with more of somebody more contemporary, perhaps Ronald Reagan.
Well, we had cable. We had cable with Reagan.
That's true. We definitely had cable. Dad just turned it over to HBO. Anyway.
Although, I'll give you a funny story about cable. The last big city to have cable was Philly in the country. So a mayor ran, it was sometime in the early 80s, on getting cable. The day he was inaugurated, front page of the Philly paper, new mayor, still no cable.
That's like the kid that runs on like no homework and like student council in the 5th grade.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, we're a town that boos Santa Claus, so
and you threw batteries at him too.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he wasn't a good looking Santa like this guy down here failed to be today. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I think you just kind of talked. Is there any more information on why D2 and D3 have grown so drastically this century and D1's decreased? And is there a what can wrestling do for you scenario at play here?
Yeah, interesting, Kevin. When I started coaching William Mary in 1984, my old coach, Al Platt, became the assistant AD at William Mary, which we were lucky to have him on our side there. Okay, he came from Ashland, that at the time just had men's wrestling. And what he told me was Ashland was a small Division II private school. He brought in 40 kids to the wrestling team that they would have had empty beds. Okay, Ashland, meaning they wouldn't have had those students. So he brought in 40 people that were paying tuition, room and board, books, the whole shebang. Okay. Ashland and other D2 schools needed more students to pay the bills. So Al's the one who told me about this enrollment thing. And sure enough, then a more fortunate thing for wrestling, Mike Moyer gets the job as the ED of the NWCA. And Mike realized this almost from his get-go. And he said, these schools need enrollment. Okay. Some conferences, one that I'm very partial to, the SEC, decided to have a smaller number of teams that dominate the sports they choose to have. And I think the SEC screwed up on that and should have wrestling at all 16 schools, not just 2 of them.
Yeah, the term I remember when I was a young college journalist. I remember sitting in Mickey Bale's office. She was a senior associate AD at Old Dominion, and I asked, like, why didn't we have softball? Why didn't we have volleyball? Why didn't we, And in that era, the smaller schools, there was no football at that place in Norfolk at the time, and it was selective excellence was what the buzzword like to use. Well, smaller schools, you can kind of use that selective excellence as I don't want to say an excuse, but yes, an excuse. You go, okay, well, it makes sense. There's not money for everything to be spent on. You're not going to be able to spend this much to try to spend with the big dogs of the world, which apparently somebody throughout the course of history, from when I did that interview in like 1999 till now, lost that memo. No, you want to. They're trying to compete, but selective excellence is one of those things. Well, we don't have it, so we're not going to invest in it. Okay.
So, with that being said, what can we do, as fans? Are there just some easy ways that, the fan base for college wrestling, we're going to have a tough time going forward. Are there things that we can do that can help? And are there any divisions that need more help? And, can we help any team regardless of the division?
All right, Kevin. One thing we learned on episodes 45 through 47 was college athletic profits do not make a profit. Okay. It's very rare if they do. And the House versus NCAA lawsuit makes it more difficult on the businesses of colleges with the rev share and the NIL and all that stuff. We're in a rapidly changing business world with college sports. Okay. So we need to figure out what we can do. And I was talking one day recently with my co-host Jason Bryant, and I remember him saying about it, the free lunch is over. Okay. And I agree with you, Jason. It would help college teams if we looked at this new world and try to find ways and reasons that having 2 wrestling teams help the school. In most cases, this will be tuition, room, and board. Okay. Now, as you can see on slide 31, okay. Next, yeah. Colleges are starting wrestling teams to help their bottom line, not because it is popular in their states or that somebody really likes wrestling. And what I mean by this is the correlation between high school male wrestlers and NCAA male wrestlers, state by state, from 82 to 19 was 0.14, meaning there's no correlation. And from 2010 to 2019, it was a very high negative correlation. Okay. So, guys, get it out of your mind. I remember when I was, long time ago when I was young, thinking I could argue with William Mary that because Virginia was such a good state in wrestling and had a lot of wrestling, especially down the beach, that we should have a team. Well, they weren't interested. Now I understand why. So, to put it in numbers for you guys about the 2 wrestling teams and what they could do for a program, you can see on slide 32. If you have 2 teams, 2 wrestling teams, which every school should have, okay, 30 people per team, $50,000 for tuition, room, and board, it's $3 million. Okay, subtract some expenses for the teams, the food, the utilities, blah, blah, blah. You're making money. If it's enrollment-driven schools and they increase because there were 2 teams, I want you to think about this. Those schools like Ashland or anybody that has 2 teams at a small enrollment-driven school is making the college more money than a lot of FBS schools make in football. Okay? Even some bigger FBS schools lose money in football. Okay. And we just mentioned, Jason said he was surprised when Kent State added women. I was really surprised by it. And that's a school that loses a ton of money in football. Okay. So it's an interesting way to look at it, guys. And we have to look at it if we want to talk to the president of the ADs. And we can say to these smaller enrollment-driven schools, we can help your bottom line. You can't say that to an SEC school, okay, because they're not interested. And
Yeah, and you
also,
can't say that to schools that don't have a problem with enrollment. Like you can't go to Tuscaloosa and be like, you're going to get 40 more people in the bed. There's no supply, no dwindling supply of students that are trying to go to these big state schools to start with. They have no problem with their enrollment.
yep, or that school in Williamsburg, which is a smaller state school, never has any trouble with enrollment. So,
Because
you know, there's-
as much as we, you know, again, as a rival from where I grew up, but also where I grew up, it's one of those things like the academic profile of the school is definitely it's like, but it doesn't help our argument because it's like, oh, this school is in high demand for the right reasons, which again doesn't help us when we're trying to get something back there because they're not really hurting for enrollment.
no.
They
Okay,
have
so
a limited
Kevin,
number of people they let in. That's the thing too. It's like,
yeah,
like
yep,
anyway.
yep. So Kevin, to answer your question a little more briefly, there's three major ways that we could help out the sport of wrestling, collegiate-wise. Donations. Nothing has changed to this. If you want to get an athletic director to take your phone call, tell them you want to give them money, okay? Or the wrestling coach. Anybody who's got a check that's going to clear, they'll take your call, okay? The next thing is sponsoring dual meets, etc. And the third thing is NIL, okay? Now,
And thing is, Glenn, here's the thing that hurts, I think, when we look at these three things. One, wrestling, we don't have a whole lot of 1 and 3. And when we do have 1 and 3, they're cannibalizing each other too, which means like, oh, and then there's the RTC, which is the other thing that's also kind of, you know, gives wrestling. It's like, okay, well, we got one guy's got $1 million. Well, where's he going to put it? Whereas football's got 100 guys with $1 million and they all want to put it to NIL. So, you know, we're a, you know, again, you know, Stanford, for example, has Fortune 50 CEOs. You know, the smaller schools, they've got guys that own tire shops. You know, they're business owners, but one is not the same, and the degree of discretionary income is not the same either.
But let me say a quick thing about NIL. 96, people came to me and asked me to work on a fundraiser for the 96 Olympic team, wrestling team. And they said, we need you to get 5 donations of $10,000. And I said, you know, I don't think I can get 5 donations of, you know, $10,000, but I could probably get 500 donations of 100. And I think if we think that way, you know, we're going to talk about a little later, you know, the average NIL donation is not that big. So if you put your base together, your alumni base, and you all throw in $100 for NIL, that's a huge thing for a small program. Can be.
yeah, yeah. And Kevin, it's interesting because I got a text from Dr. Eddie McLaughlin, one of the William Mary alumni, about the national duels at Tulsa and say we need to work it into a show somehow. And it was a huge $1 million prize money. That was great. Okay, that's an example of a big thing. And now stadiums all over have corporate sponsorships. There's no reason certain duels or invitations can't have a corporate sponsor. And I'll give you a funny story on this. The old, what used to be called the Sears Tower in Chicago, is now known as the Willis Tower. Okay. The guy that did that deal is an old William Mary alumni. Okay. The guy that donated the money for the baseball stadium there. Okay. And I saw this lecture he gave one time on how he got that deal. He goes, I asked the owner of the building. Nobody else asked him. So my thoughts are, yeah, you want to sponsor a dual meet in name your place. I don't care if it's State College, PA, or some small Division III school. You could go up to the coach and say, hey, I want, you know, Joe's Steakhouse to sponsor this dual meet. Offer them some money. They might take it.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking about like in Lancaster, you know, F&M versus Millersville, the Rupp Cup, named after Ted Rupp, who coached at both programs. Man, I'm thinking, where's a good business in town in Lancaster? You know, I don't even know if I don't think Iron Hill Brewing's open anymore, but I haven't lived there in 15 years, but it was like, you know, if it's Doc Holliday's Rupp Cup, or if it's, I'm trying to think of the places that were open. Those places are not really places you really want to sponsor. Brendy's Rupp Cup. I mean, you could have a name on it. Yeah, why not? And make it again, making it event. That's where, again, in the national duels, it was an event. And, I was down there announcing with A.L. Hazlip, and it's like each round we had that whole, that takedown thing. And that was on the school board. It got people, teams are chasing it. They're like, that's an extra 20 grand for some of these schools. They get that 10 grand per round on day one. So, thinking outside the box. And of course, we also have to be, when we're talking about these money things, we also have to tell people the ROI year one's probably not going to be much. You've got to give, 5 years, like with Utah with the private equity, okay, 5 years. Well, let's give this 5 years and see what happens with some of these things. So, I mean, like I said, I thought the Paycom sponsorship, the National Duels Invitational was great. I'd love to see more people with wrestling friendly businesses take a shot versus, it's been, I feel like we're always asking guys like Novogratz for stuff all the time. And now Chad Richardson's name's being thrown around a lot. Like, we keep asking the same people for the same stuff. So
yeah.
Let's find those people again. That's where the old Wrestlers and Business Network tie-in also works too. Zing. You like how I fired that one in there? All right. Moving forward.
Well, I can tell you this, Jason. If that school in Williamsburg still had one wrestling team, but they need two wrestling teams, my business would have sponsored a dual meet or a quad there every year. Mm-hmm. I guarantee it.
Well, I mean, you made money from all the wrestlers over the years, drinking.
Yeah. So, from Jason and Kevin coming in and all the way.
I didn't even go to school there, and I was there.
Jeez, well, then I made money off of Jason. Yeah, thank you very much.
I don't know, I was poor college student. You weren't making your ROI on me wasn't much. Although, you did have Anchor's team on draft there, which was a good one.
Yeah. So. Okay, so like Kevin said earlier, we're not just looking for a huge sponsor like Paycom. We're looking for anything we can to help out the thing, because it's getting rougher and rougher on these schools. Okay. Now, Jason does an awesome job on his attendance thing, too, on his website. Nobody else follows the attendance like Jason Bryant does. But going to a dual meet or a tourney at the school really isn't what is keeping the teams. And if you think about this, 666 schools have football of the 1,085 NCAA members. That means 61% have football. 419 schools do not have a football team. Now, if it was just about sports that brought, people to the stands, everyone would have football, because no one's going to outdraw football, right? No matter how good your wrestling team is, football is going to outdraw.
Well, that school in Grand Forks hockey outdraws it, but that's just sheer numbers. They've 20 home games versus 6. So
yeah. Okay. Now, he who troubles his own house will inherit the wind. Okay, an old biblical quote there. Small sponsorships have an advantage over PE money. The control stays inside the college. Not to say the college administrators are shrewd financially. You just minimize catastrophic outcomes that come with PE money. Okay. Gorms might not be a fan of college ADs and that's the way the athletic departments run their thing financially, but private equity money is really inviting trouble into your house.
So that's a little bit about what we can do to help. But another big thing that's going on is NIL in college wrestling, name, image, and likeness. Right now, how much is NIL a factor in NCAA wrestling? And does NIL help the school's athletic department financially?
Okay, Kevin, thank you. The charts on slide 39 and 40, 39 is men, 40 is women. This is a new element the NCAA is putting out, so it's going to take some time to really get it nailed down. The numbers there are the disclosed value, okay, and then on the bottom you see the average total, and it means mean. I should have put mean in there, but I wrote average, so people normally think of the mean as the average. Both the disclosed value and the total athletics earnings. Okay. The difference between mean and median, guys. Mean is what people think of average. You add up all the totals and divide it by the occurrences. The median is there's as many above as there are below. Okay. So if the mean is significantly higher than the median, which this is in all these cases, it means there's a few big deals that skew the numbers. And as far as men's concerned, okay, for all of 2024, the total median earnings for men's wrestling is $1,300. And almost all this comes from a couple Big Ten wrestling schools or maybe a Big 12 school. Okay. It's not much at all going into this. Now, the NIL on these numbers on this website, as you can see on slide 41, just gives you the percentage in each category. They don't tell you the total amount of NIL deals. I don't know why they're doing that. Who knows? Okay. But as time goes on, we'll see more of this. I think it is possible for people to help out some wrestlers in that situation. All right. Now, with that, the NIL money does not help the college at all, as you can see on slide 42. All right. The NIL would go straight from a person or a business to the athlete. It never goes into the school's coffers. So most college presidents are more interested in their bottom line financially than winning a game or a match. I mean, that's why they're there. Okay. So it's an interesting thing. It's a way to help it out, but it might not be something the college athletic departments are crazy about. Privately, they won't say it out loud.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. NIL is going to be a big part of it, so they're going to probably try and figure out a way that how can we get a taste. All right, so to summarize this, how do we summarize this episode, and how about some examples and how the world's changed and other business and yet they survived?
Okay, the world's changed drastically since the 70s when Kevin and I were in college. You drive around the street right now, every other billboard is a lawyer. Okay, lawyers were not allowed to advertise until 1977. Okay, in 1971, cigarette commercials were no longer allowed on TV and radio. And Kevin and I remember all these cigarette commercials. Okay. Only recently
Joe
was
Camel.
beer. Yeah. Only recently was beer available at most college football games. I think it was 2019.
Available for purchase, let's be clear.
Thank you.
Beer has always been available at college football games. It's whether or not
Excuse
you
me.
could buy it.
Yep. Okay. And some places we brought in moonshine. Okay. Rocky Top. Okay. And I'm old enough. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when that school in Williamsburg was about education. Now you can buy beer at football games. Okay, so the bottom line is the 70s called. They want their policies back. Okay, Kevin and I are going to hear when we're besides hearing Bryant Hazard and Jason Bryant announce the match, we're going to hear people at the William Mary Suite talking about back when I was in school. Well, guys, that was a long time ago. Okay. So we're trying to show you how much the world has changed, and we need to put more arrows in our quiver to help the wrestling team, whether it's donations, NIL, sponsorship, whatever it is, convincing schools that, hey, you could start a team here. Any way we can help the sport that has done so much for us is good. Okay. The more you make it easy for a college to start or keep a wrestling team is indispensable. The financial times have changed so much. We need all the help we can get. Kevin, why don't you give me your famous Kev notes?
All right, just a little. I'd like to do a little sum up on that too. We were talking about private equity money. We're talking about all these things that are done in the aggregate. And most of that private equity money and what they're going to focus on in all these big programs are the big sports. We have to, if we want to save wrestling, we have to focus on wrestling. And that's what I'm saying. If we can find, there are some $1 million people out there. We saw that with Paycom. There's other things, but that 500 million that's going to the University of Utah, number one, they don't have a wrestling program. But the Big Ten, They're gonna have $1 billion deal. Not a lot of that's going to wrestling. So I think the fan base, we have to step up as a fan base and build. This is something that we learned, in our last crisis. This is the second crisis we've gone through in our lifetime. We can't let us catch us blind. We have to start now helping to build those programs. Number one, the University of Utah has approved a $500 million deal from the private equity firm Otro Capital. That was on 50.8. The University of Utah Athletic Department lost $17.5 million in the school year 23-24, thus needing, a $500 million deal. To continue the growth in college wrestling that has taken place this century, we have to understand and work with the new and evolving framework of college sports. Number four, 137.5% of the growth in NCAA men's college wrestling this century has come from the D2 and D3 level. No, that's not a typo. And yes, it does mean that D1 has lost teams in that time frame. Number five, almost 75% of D2 teams are either brand new or have been reinstated this century. They almost died, and they've come back so strong. And I think we were talking about it's heads in beds, and it's made a huge difference in wrestling at that level. Number six, 76% of all new NCAA schools have come at the D2 and D3 level. D2 and D3 schools tend to be smaller private schools, and they're enrollment driven. And so that's where we need to focus attention there, because that is the driver for wrestling over the next couple of years. Number eight, fans can help college wrestling teams through small donations, sponsorships, and NIL money. Small gifts from many can equal large gifts from a few large donors and companies. Number nine, the median NIL deal disclosure for men's wrestling in 2024 was $168. The median earnings were $1,217. The mean is much larger than the median. This shows there's just a few large deals, but most are small deals. And number 10, the change in college sports since the 70s is so overwhelming, and no one really knows what the landscape will be in a decade. I mean, we are in a state of flux, and it's going to be interesting. May you live in interesting times.
Something that we all just kind of keep in mind. And again, the problem again is we can have all these ideas and we can be ready. The thing is it sucks not driving the bus. That's the thing. We're along for the ride, and we just have to remember that. So before we get all huffy and puffy about our leaders and such not doing enough, we don't know what we don't know. And that's the hard part about being a sport that ultimately the bottom line is we're going to have to pay for ourselves. The days of handout waiting, like I said, free lunch is over. The day of wanting the school to pay for us because they should be paying for us, it's gone. It's gone. We want something on our own. We have to give the D2s, D3s, the NAIs, the value of our sport. But at the Division I level, we're going to have to pay for it. And that's kind of the bottom line because, Daddy Warbucks and the Monopoly guy say so. So that's the one thing to remember. When all these good things, remember it still comes down to money. We got to be able to open up that checkbook. And you can't always rely on that Powerball because who knows, I'm 0 for whatever forever on the Powerball. So anyway.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jason Kevin. The next episode will be a study on how a school becomes an NCAA member and how schools move from one division to the other. I've gotten some requests on this from different people. So on behalf of my fellow co-host, Jason Bryant, Kevin Hazard, I'm Glenn Gormley, and Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year. See you next year.